The scorching summer sun blazed down on the crowded plaza, where families gathered to watch the annual military parade, flags fluttering in the hot breeze, and the rhythmic beat of drums echoing against the stone walls. Children laughed and darted between their parents' legs, clutching cotton candy and balloons, while veterans stood proudly, saluting the passing soldiers. In this vibrant chaos, a small blonde-haired girl in a simple yellow dress drifted just a little too far from her mother's side. She had been captivated by the sparkle of polished boots and gleaming rifles held by the honor guards marching in formation. But within minutes, her innocent curiosity led her into the wrong place at the wrong time. When she bumped against a police barricade, the officer posted there, already tense and agitated from managing the restless crowd, misinterpreted her presence as defiance. His jaw clenched, veins bulged on his temples, and his hand moved to his holster. Instead of recognizing the fragility of the child before him, his paranoia distorted reality. He saw threats where none existed. He shouted at her, his voice slicing through the noise, "Step back. Step back now." The girl froze, eyes wide, clutching the edge of her dress as the sea of strangers closed in behind her. Before she could even process the command, the officer drew his taser, the yellow and black weapon gleaming menacingly under the afternoon sun. A horrified gasp rippled through the crowd, phones raised in disbelief as they witnessed the unthinkable, a uniformed man aiming electrical fury at a defenseless child. The girl's innocence was her undoing, because she did not understand authority, nor fear it in the way adults did. Instead, she blinked up at the officer with confusion, her lips trembling as tears brimmed at the corners of her big blue eyes. The officer's finger tightened on the trigger, the device crackling to life, and a dangerous hush fell over the spectators. People screamed, begged him to stop, but his face was locked in a mask of misplaced aggression. With a sharp click, the taser fired, wires shooting forward. The girl shrieked, her small frame convulsing as electricity surged through her body, sending her crumpling to the pavement. For a split second, the world seemed to stop spinning. Mothers covered their children's eyes, fathers shouted in rage, and the once joyful parade disintegrated into a storm of chaos. Yet even amid the outrage, the officer barked. She was resisting. She moved into restricted space. His justification fell flat, drowned by the cries of the little girl's mother, who forced herself through the panicked throng, her wails piercing the air as she gathered her trembling daughter into her arms. But while the crowd turned against the police, no one yet knew the secret about this girl's family. No one knew that her father, the quiet, stoic man who had been serving his duty just yards away in a crisp uniform, wasn't just any soldier. He wasn't just a protector. He was one of the most respected guardians in the nation, a sentinel of the tomb of the unknown soldier, a man who had pledged his life to honor those who could no longer speak for themselves. And at that exact moment, he was watching everything unfold. The tomb guard had been trained for silence, precision, and eternal vigilance. Day and night, in rain, snow, and blistering heat, he had marched, guarding the sacred ground where America's nameless heroes rested. His discipline was legendary, his duty unshakable, his composure nearly impossible to break. But in that instant, when his gaze locked on the sight of his daughter writhing helplessly on the ground while a reckless officer reloaded his taser, something deep within him cracked. A storm surged behind his eyes, an emotion rarely seen in his line of work, fury. His every instinct screamed at him to break formation, to abandon ritual, to become not just a guard of honor but a father defending his blood. Yet his movements were deliberate, every step measured as he broke away from the ceremonial line, his polished rifle still at his side. Gasps echoed again as the decorated tomb guard approached, the crowd parting instinctively in reverence and fear. His uniform gleamed, metals glinting beneath the sunlight, his posture unshakable, yet his clenched jaw betrayed the storm within. The officer, still oblivious, swung his taser back toward the girl's mother, threatening her for interference. But before he could act again, a commanding voice, cold as steel and sharp as the crack of thunder, cut through the uproar. The guard's words were simple, yet carried the weight of centuries of honor. "You just attacked my daughter." The crowd collectively held its breath, realizing the magnitude of what had just been revealed. The officer hesitated, a bead of sweat rolling down his temple as he finally noticed the man before him wasn't just another bystander. The black and gold trim of the guard's uniform, the white gloves, the bayonet affixed to the gleaming rifle, these weren't decorations of ordinary service. They were symbols of an elite brotherhood whose dedication was unmatched. The onlookers erupted in whispers. "That's a tomb guard, he's one of them." Phones captured every moment as the tension escalated. The officer stammered, his earlier aggression faltering, but arrogance still lingered. "Sir, stand back, this is official police." His sentence was cut short when the guard stepped closer, his boots striking the stone with authority, his presence towering like a monument of retribution. His eyes blazed, yet his voice remained low and deadly calm. "You pointed a weapon at my little girl. You sent electricity through her body. You humiliated your badge, your oath, and your humanity. And you did it under the watch of 1,000 witnesses." The crowd roared in agreement, their anger now armed with the truth of the man's identity. For the first time, the officer's grip on his taser faltered. He realized he was no longer in control. He had awoken something he could not contain. What made this revelation even more terrifying for the officer was the nature of the tomb guard's reputation. These men were known not only for their discipline but also for their unshakable sense of justice. The guard's training had instilled within him an ability to endure pain, weather storms, and protect honor at all costs. Yet here, in this very plaza, his role was no longer ceremonial, it was personal. As his daughter whimpered in her mother's arms, the soldier's resolve hardened into something unbreakable. He raised his rifle slightly, not as an act of aggression, but as a reminder of the authority he carried, an authority rooted not in fear, but in centuries of sacrifice and duty. "You've disgraced yourself before these people," he said, his voice echoing like a verdict delivered in a courtroom. "But worse, you've harmed what I hold most sacred." The officer stepped back, panic flickering across his face as the crowd surged forward, chanting for justice. Parents shouted that the guard should take control, while others demanded the officer be arrested immediately. Cameras flashed, streaming the confrontation live across social media, where millions would soon witness the story of a reckless cop who dared to tase a child, only to discover her father was a tomb guard, a man whose fury was now an unstoppable force. And as the officer's knees seemed to buckle under the weight of the crowd's condemnation, the tomb guard's next decision would determine whether this day was remembered as a tragedy or as a reckoning.